Hello everybody, just to let you know that our brand new Christmas song Pantomime is available right now. You can download it from Amazon Music or Google Play. You can stream it from Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, YouTube Music, wherever you get your music. And don't forget, all the proceeds we receive from downloads and streams is going to a wonderful charity, Dementia UK. So get downloading, get streaming, enjoy this video. We'll see you soon.
First two pantomimes we ever did were at Theatre Royal Bath.
Yeah. Do you remember the actual auditions at all?
Well, we were told beware if the rehearsal pianist is a certain, and they said this name.
Yeah.
And when he introduced us, it was this name playing the piano.
So you were worried?
We were worried, yeah.
But I think I played guitar on a couple of numbers. I think that got us away with it because the pianist followed us rather than us following him.
That year,
Are you going to tell the story in Bath?
Yeah.
I was back in Bath.
we shared a bed sitting room, wasn't it? In a place called the Donnybrook Hotel. They were all bed sitting.
Yeah.
And just prior to going to Bath for the panto, we'd come back from the West Indies entertaining on a cruise.
Yeah.
Well, we were on the cruise. Whether we entertained it
Well, that's debatable, yeah. Anyway, this particular morning, weren't we still in rehearsals or was it performance?
I think it was in
It
rehearsal.
was performance.
Oh, yeah,
So
it was performance because I had to go on my own.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh.
So anyway, I woke up vomiting. Your dad said I was green. I couldn't get out the bed. Terrible. Felt like nothing on earth. So he rang for a doctor.
Yeah.
Because there was a theatre doctor who dealt with the people from the Theatre Royal. The doctor came out in those days. He examined me and said, "Oh, I think we'll have to have a blood test."
Yeah,
So,
but John, before the doctor arrived, Fran, your mum and I walked down to the theatre to tell Frank Maddox that Alan was very ill and I didn't think he'd be able to go on that afternoon.
Yeah.
And Frank Maddox's first words were, "Oh, what am I going to do?" Nothing about, "Oh dear, how is he? I'm so sorry."
Great.
anyway, at the interim, the guy comes, takes blood, it's whisked away, and then next the doctor or someone came and said, "You've got to go into hospital, your white blood cell count is up." I said, "Oh, what does that mean?" And he said, "It means something's going on inside you that we've got to discover what it is." So an ambulance comes and I'm whisked off. In those days there were 3 general hospitals in Bath.
Oh wow. Yeah.
He was actually taken to the hospital where Eddie Cochran, the rock and roll singer and guitarist, had died when he had a car
Oh,
crash.
I'm glad I didn't know that.
Did they put that on the wall?
Anyway, in the meantime, your dad has to do the matinee on his own.
But before that, we travelled back to the digs, and when we got there was a lady staying there called Mrs. Norris, and I always remember it, she was standing at the top of the stairs as we arrived, and she looked down and she just looked at us, she said, "I've got some bad news, dears, he's gone." And I actually thought for a minute he'd passed away.
Oh my God.
And my first thought was, what am I going to do?
No, he thought, "Oh, that's good, now my money's gone up 50%.
But yeah, so when we did the show, I had to go on my own, and we were doing a vocal act then. I remember we were doing the song Walk Hand in Hand with me, and also Green Green, the new Christy Minstrels hit. I can't remember the other 2 songs we did. We did 4 songs in our spot, with me playing guitar.
Yeah.
And I was terrified.
Yeah.
The first time I'd ever had to go on my own. And I remember what made it worse, all the cast came in the wings to watch me, thinking they were giving me support, but it just made me feel more horrendous. But
Anyway,
I did it for, how many, 6 shows?
That was the Wednesday. Friday evening at 9 o'clock, the doctor came in the ward, stood at the end of my bed. "We found out what's wrong with you." And I said, "Oh, what is it, doctor?" He said, "You've got a cracked rib."
Blimey.
Because we'd been doing the
Awkward Squad.
the awkward squad routine, and I had to fall.
Yeah.
And I'd cracked this rib down the side. So they sent me out the next day with just a strip of plaster on, which they don't even bother with that nowadays.
Yeah.
And I went back to the theatre and Frank Maddox said, "Oh no, don't go on this afternoon, Alan. So just watch the show." So that was the only time I ever sat and watched a show that I should have been in. And then I went on in the evening.
Oh wow.
And when he came on in the evening, none of the cast came into the wings to watch.
I remember one show where we did your flying routine that you'd done for years,
Yeah.
and in the blackout in the wings, they put your harness on back to front.
Yeah.
So the metal parts that are normally on the outside are now on the inside,
Yeah.
digging into your collarbone.
Yeah.
I remember.
Ah,
In fact, I think that's half the troubles I'm still having. All these years later.
Do you have anybody that stands out that all the years you worked with, all the different people? Obviously, working with Ken Dodd must have been fun.
The great thing, the musical director then, Danny Walters.
Danny Walters.
He had
Yeah.
the worst wig you've ever seen. Danny used to always wear, but Ken always did a gag with him, and it never ever failed. It really was the way Ken did it. He'd say, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say how wonderful it is. Danny Walters, our musical director, who is retiring at the end of this pantomime season."
Emigrating to Australia.
Yeah, and Danny said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." And Ken, the timing was brilliant. Ken would just say, "Oh, yes, you are."
That's right, yeah.
And it never failed. It was a great gag.
Yeah.
Des O'Connor, we did 3 pantomimes with Des.
Yeah.
And we did 4 pantomimes with Danny LaRue. We did a pantomime with John Inman, one of the greatest, Eartha Kitt. She was Jeannie in the
Aladdin.
Manchester
Hard to
Palace.
believe she did a panto. Occasionally now you get sort of big American stars come over and do pantomimes, but certainly not back in the 80s.
No, it was unusual, and she'd never. I don't think she'd even seen a pantomime
That's
before.
right.
She was a lovely
We got
person.
the first performance with an actual packed house.
Yeah.
She had a radio mic on and she started delivering her lines, and because it was the hubbub, and she looked into the wing, she said, "Are they always going to be this noisy?"
It was a school. It was all school kids.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah. But Les Dawson we did a pantomime with, Lesley Joseph and John Nettles. We did 7 Dick Whittingtons with them. Well, John did 6. He was replaced one year by Robert Duncan. The rest of the time it was John, and Jeff Holland was in all of those as well. So,
Obviously, pantomime's famous for having big, bright, colourful sets, but once you've done a lot of them, they're all quite similar, aren't they? You might be lucky if you have sort of heights with some, and the ship in Dick Whittington, you get to go up and be like the captain of the ship. I remember that. But I remember one of the most crazy things you had to do was learn high wire work when you were supposed to be shipwrecked, and to recreate that you'd written an idea where you'd all be on wires, and it was as if you were floating in the sea.
Birmingham Hippodrome.
Unbelievably, I'd written that pantomime because it was for Brian Connolly, and I was writing pantos now and writing for Brian Connolly, so Dick Whittington. But I had this brilliant idea of the cloth gauze with the sea painted on it, and us on wires behind it with Brian, the 3 of us, because we were captain and mate. You were captain, he was Captain Birdseye, I was Findus the mate, and Brian was Dick Whittington.
He was in the middle.
Yeah. So it was the 3 of us on wires, seemingly floating in the sea.
Just bobbing up and down. And had to keep like we were treading water.
And it worked very well, but
with your flying routine, the joke is you can see the rope and it's really obvious, but with this it was done properly so you wouldn't see
It
it.
was,
right.
that came down either side of us. So we could, I was the only one that dared do it, a somersault.
Oh,
I would actually turn myself over
You could
between the 2 wires.
He could. I was terrified once we got up there, and I think we were barefoot as well, weren't we? Because the thought of falling.
Oh
I mean, we were quite a height up.
Yeah, we were. Actually.
And it just terrified me, and I thought, I had this idea. How pathetic is that? And we went to a workshop somewhere in London, and they put us on the wires, but we were only a couple of feet off the ground there just to get used to it. And I felt all right then, but once we did it on stage, every night it was horrendous.
But you were okay with it, though.
I was the one who had back problems. I did that.
Maybe it helped. It sort of loosened it. Are there any theatre digs that stood out for you, or ones that you remember particularly? To say
I
where they
had
were?
terrible digs most years. Actually, I had my own caravan.
Oh, I see.
Oh yeah, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
But that must be a totally different thing, having to find a place for that every year.
Well,
Weren't there some times you had it in like the back of the theatre?
Yeah, a few occasions. They ran me out an electric cable, so I had power.
And you used to plug it into you had an electric chair,
a microwave, electric convector heater. So in the depth of winter, which obviously pantomime is, was, you'd have the convector heater at a certain temperature. So the caravan was always warm.
No,
so-
that must have saved quite a bit on digs, having your own caravan.
Yeah, yeah.
That Donnybrook Hotel that you mentioned in Bath, there was one of the people who was staying there. I don't think I ever saw him, but if you walked past his door and the floorboard creaked,
Which they always did.
he'd shout out, "Noise!"
Yeah.
and we often had people come back from the theatre to have a drink or a chat, you know, in our room, and terrified if it all got too loud because this guy would be shouting noise all
Yeah.
the time.
So you started Pantos in '68. There was only 1 year where you were supposed to have a Panto and you ended up not doing it. So you came quite close to working with Basil Brush.
That's right, yeah.
But you never did. Have you always regretted that? Or
Yeah, Sunderland Empire, because another great guy who we did get to know later, Bert Whedon, the guitarist, he was in that show.
That's right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Anthea Askey, Arthur Askey's daughter,
Well,
and we
you
did
were-
Arthur Askey's last ever pantomime at Richmond.
But you were even on the posters for that one at Sunderland.
Yeah,
and
we
weren't
were.
in it. Why
No.
was that then?
Our agency, our management entered us to a talent show for London Weekend Television
Yeah.
and
Called Search for a Star.
Search for a Star, and we won our heat, and the final was on the opening night of the pantomime.
God.
So there were phone calls back and forth, and finally our management said, well, they've got to do the final,
Yeah, yeah.
nationwide television. So they pulled us out the panto, because the pantomime people said, well, we don't want to rehearse stand-ins just for the opening night.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll sign someone else to do the whole run.
So
So
we-
it's 10 weeks.
10-week pantomime, yeah, for one night's television, and we came third on the final of
That's right.
Search for a Star, and it did us no good whatsoever.
No. But my wife Julia, she was signed to go as one of the dancers in that pantomime.
Oh, yeah.
So we agreed that she'd carry on and go to Sunderland to do it. And the first week of rehearsal, she landed badly and broke her ankle.
Oh, God.
So then I had to drive up to Sunderland, and she had a leg in plaster and came back. So
Oh,
no
dear.
pantomime for
So
any
all
of
the
us.
Simmonses
Yeah.
left that pantomime.
Yeah.
Terrible. Oh, dear, yeah.
And the only other one we missed was in 73, 74, when we just didn't have a pantomime, but we did the battling circuit.
That's
We actually
right.
worked on Christmas Day
Yeah.
and Boxing Day with the ventriloquist Albert Savine.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was a great,
With Daisy May.
yeah, great ventriloquist. A very interesting character, Albert. Daisy May used to, "Hello, Mr. Savine," had a voice like that. And you'd phone
Have you
Albert.
ever thought of taking it out?
Yeah, no, my lips were moving, unfortunately. But you'd phone him, and Daisy May would answer the phone and say, "Mr. Savine isn't here at the moment. Can you ring back later?" And you'd have to ring half hour later and say, "Hello, Albert." He'd say, "Oh yeah, Daisy May told me you'd rung."
That's right, yeah.
Insane.
Ah.
But that wasn't even in pantomime. But that replaced the pantomime working with him.
Oh, yeah.
And we did several other nights and things around that time when we should have been pantomiming, but that was the only other time we didn't have a pantomime.
That's
wasn't it?
right, yeah.
So it's been amazing. Thanks so much for sharing
all right.
everything. Yeah. So the Simmons brothers reunited. See you soon. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Dreams come true and cutlets frying in the land of pantomime.